Hey everybody, welcome back to Solutions University. This is the fourth episode in our five-part series. We'll be covering the injustice within, which is a topic that I picked because as people in this country, we like to point fingers at external sources and make excuses versus really look inside and reflect on what is really affecting the community. We'll just go right on into the first question here. I got this from the data center at kidscount.org, and it was pulled from the Populations Reference Bureau and census data from 2018. Given the fact that 65% of Black homes, 41% of Latino homes contain children without fathers versus the 24% in the white community, how much of an adverse impact does that have on the youth today and their futures? So I'm gonna go ahead and let Topher hit that first.
Like I said, I always like to go back to Barack Obama when he was running for his campaign, and he brought up the fact that 5% or like you're 5 times more likely to grow up in poverty. You're 9 times more likely to drop out of high school, and you're 20 times more likely to end up in jail if you grow up without a father. So fathers are very significant role models and people that you need in your life. And we can see that throughout, if you just look at statistics and the crime rate, and as far as mass incarceration, you almost can see a direct correlation between single parent households and the people that are in jail today. Now, on top of that, it wasn't just Barack Obama. It was also Kwesi Mfume, who was a former NAACP president, who also said when he was talking to Larry Elder that if you, when he asked him, he said, "Hey, man, what do you think is the biggest issue facing Black community today?" And he said, without a doubt, absentee fathers. So you have two people on the left that's not even conservative that's saying that this is a big issue and we need to, address it. But like you said, there's many layers to this, and I'm not just placing the blame solely on the man, but it's just something that we need to recognize. This is why I have a song with Bryson Gray called "Make Families Great Again," because if you just look at the statistics, it's the 2-parent household is just the best thing we can have for them with the natural born parents. So it may not be it might not work every time, but if you're talking like over time, it is one of the best things to have. So yeah.
Kate?
So I think that with this particular topic, I think things that the systems that we currently have or the structures that we have with things like welfare contribute majorly to this topic, and talking about how it affects the incentive to not have, fathers in the home, and not having fathers in the home means more money and all this different stuff. And so that kind of concept in general, I feel like is a negative encouragement to have broken homes. And when you have broken homes, that leads to abandonment issues for kids. That leads to lack of leadership and role models for kids. And that sense of abandonment can lead to resentment, and that sense of resentment can lead to terrible choices. And then you end up in gang crime, and you end up with a whole bunch of just negatively impacted things. So I think having things like welfare that exist with the sole encouragement of, not sole, but major encouragement of, to all the mothers out there, well, okay, guess what? You're struggling. All right, well, I guess if you abort that baby, but you already have one, not only that, but if you keep your other baby daddy out of the house, you're going to get more money. Like, it's this whole, it's a vicious cycle. And it's not great. I talk a lot with my hands. Anyway, but, just I think that things like that, people don't really think about how that affects the decision of abortion, and it affects how people make that decision. But at the end of the day, if I'm a single mother, and I know that me being a single mother in the home is the only way that I'm going to get government support, I'm not, and I know that I'm only getting a certain amount. For me, it's kind of like, do I really need to have another kid? Because I'm already struggling as it is. Will I get the help that I need for that other kid? It just raises all these questions that I think lead to some really negative decisions. So that's me.
Okay, well, for me, I think the listeners need to understand that this is a study that's not new. This ain't something that just within the last 10 years. This has been going on for decades, over 50, 60 years. And So you take the numbers that Sean gave, the 65%, the 41%, and the 24%. That's an average of 43% now today. But back in 1970, that overall, no matter what race you were, that overall number was 11%. So as a society as a whole, excuse me, going from 11% to 43%, that's a huge jump in just 50 years, right? So that's definitely something that we need to focus on as a society. The other thing is, yes, it definitely, just a broken home, a one-parent family definitely affects the children in 4 main areas: academically, socially, emotionally, and cognitively. And it not only affects the children during their development growing up, but because of that, then as adults, they are affected in those same 4 areas. So definitely a huge impact across the board for everybody.
So for me, I mean, a lot of it hits on, like, you know, the typical traditional married family and all that jazz. And I'm divorced, but I think that the absentee father is the term used today to address it, or they have women refer to him as the sperm donor or whatever, right? I'm divorced. I see my kids every single day. I take my son to school. I pick him up from school. I take my daughter to work. I friggin' take my son to Little League that I coach. I get their school grades, assignments, and tests and everything forwarded directly to me, so I know exactly what they're doing in school. I'm focused on their education. I help my daughter select which college she's going to go to, which she starts next month. I am actually, in other ways, more active in my kid's life now that I am not married than I am not. But there are people who are out there who will have a baby, and, you know, just because they were just having sex and not being smart about it, and they had a baby and they don't care. There are people out there who are trying to have sex with some girl, and they're not really caring about what type of person she is, and they do, and they're willing to be that dad, but she's not going to let them. Mm-hmm. So I think that the father plays a huge role, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have to have that traditional home where biological mom and dad are married and living together. But as long as biological dad is there and active and picking up the downtime where mom's at work or mom's this, and being engaged in those kids and knowing what they're doing and being accountable is going to do a lot. And in other parts, for girls and boys, that dad is that example, right? And most men want to be the best father they can be, right? So you want to be that best example. I want my daughter, when she goes to pick some dude, which will never happen because she's going to be married to Jesus, but when she goes and looks for a man, then I hope that he would be like me, who never cussed at her mother in front of her, is never going to disrespect her and call her out of her name, is going to open doors for her, is going to take care of her. She can have all the money she wants. She can make more money than him, but he's going to pay the bills and be the provider. And that's money for vacations and whatever else, because that's what men do, right? And then is not a spineless sissy, and he better not be a Democrat. And for my son, is that example of how he needs to grow up to be, to respect women, to respect himself, and to work hard and apply yourself. And if you're going to do something, you do the best that you can do at it, no matter what it is. If it's, I'm going to go cut the lawn today, well, that better be the nice lawn neighborhood. Always put your best foot forward. And that's what a dad is supposed to show those kids, and that's what they're missing. So I think it has a massive impact. How can attacking the issue, an issue like this, increase the survivability of young Black men and Hispanic men in the United States, lower the incarceration rate and success rate with minority communities such as Blacks and Latinos? So real quick for me on that, like, this is not a random Black person or a random Hispanic person just driving around the neighborhood shooting people. There is a criminal element involved in all of these. It is gang activity. It is drug feuds, turf wars, all kinds of things. It can be in an armed robbery going wrong. It can be in a magnitude of things, but there is a criminal element involved. So if we could fix that, I believe not only does it increase survivability, it takes us out of the prison system, it sets us on a track to success, but it also changes that stereotype. I mean, these people that are out there on the corner gangbanging and selling drugs and doing these things are only perpetuating a stereotype that everybody thinks about you. So I think that attacking that root issue is something that an organization like Black Lives Matter should really be hitting at, if Black Lives Matter, because it would solve a lot of issues within both communities. Topher. I can't hear you, Topher.
Still can't hear you.
You're muted, Topher. There you go.
Man, they tripping. They hating on a brother.
Mm-hmm.
But I was about to spit that gospel. That's what it was. But no. So we were talking about violence in the community. Just community. I just want to bring up the fact that I think we have 6 children died so far this year, because of gang-related violence or just gun-related violence, and I think it's 6 or 8. I'm not sure. But
6 in Chicago alone died over Father's Day weekend. We're shocked.
So maybe it's something like that. It's like 8 or something like that. But
It's more than it should be.
Yeah, more than it should be. And so when I look at things like this, and a lot of people want to bring up, some maybe they've been discriminated against, not like based on color, just based on your history, where you stay, where you located, how you look. It does happen, from time to time. But also, it just reinforces the fact that we have a natural instinct to look for family, to be with a family, to build with a family. So if that family is not there at home, you're gonna go search for it somewhere else because that void needs to be filled. So you have a lot of these young men going out here that's seeking that father figure, that person they can, or the people they can say that's got their back, that will help them get a job and get up on their feet, that they believe is going to teach them something about life. So it's very enticing and easy for them to become culpable or susceptible to those type of behaviors. My only counter to that is, if everyone's listening to this, is to know that despite what you may or may not think, there's always another option. So sometimes, as they say, the gold is at the end of the rainbow. So I mean, you may see the pretty rainbow, it looks all nice and fancy, but keep going down that trail until you get to the real treasure. Because I grew up in a similar situation, and when I tell people, the only difference between me and my brother, because he has a whole totally different life. He's a single guy, don't really have money to his name. He's traveling between here and Haiti. I have no idea why. But not Haiti, but oh man, I can't think of the country name. But it's a Hispanic country. Whatever.
Hungary?
Not Hungary. It's near it, I think. Man, I can't think of the name. But yeah, so he's traveling back and forth, and just totally different life. And grew up in a similar household. I mean, grew up literally, he's a year younger than me, so we grew up in the same circumstances. But we decided to make different choices in life. So if we're adults, right, I feel like we as an adult, me as a man, it's our duty to also be out there, be present, and be vocal about what we can do. So it's not just make a better choice, kids, but it's also our responsibility as we become adults to make sure that we go back and inform them. Like, hey, that's why mentoring is important. Like back in the day, apprenticeship was a huge thing. And it was just that form of like, I'm gonna teach you how to do this craft. I'm also gonna mentor you, teach you how, just how life goes. We need to get back to that. And I would love to see more of that. That's why I like Trump's policies, is pushing more of the apprenticeship and things like that. But yeah, that's just my thing on it, man. I hate to see it, but I'm hoping I hope we get it done, because like I said, I'm tired of seeing my people die from silly stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Is it the Dominican Republic? Is that what you were trying to think of?
No.
Okay. It's hooked on to Haiti. That's why I asked.
No, it's not Haiti. It's in South America, I think.
I don't know.
Okay.
Well, and one thing I did want to tell you, Jover, is that there's a buddy of mine who's in real estate, like commercial real estate. They have billions of dollars that are just on hold because there are not enough skilled laborers to complete those jobs. And so a lot of people out there, if you're watching and you're like, what am I going to do in my life right now? I'm ending high school, or I'm out of high school, or colleging for me, or I'm getting out of the military. They are jobs galore for skilled laborers. And that's masonry, plumbing, electricians, all these things, carpenters, that they do not have enough of to fill these billion-dollar projects. So get after that.
Honduras is what I was talking about. Sorry.
I literally Honduras like 5 times. I was like, Honduras, 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 Honduras. And everyone was like, no. Anywho, my views are very similar to everything that everyone said, pretty much. For about what you said about there's always another option, like boys and girls clubs that we can be volunteering at. And people don't think about, like, it doesn't have to be some big, like, I went and to this other country and volunteer. Like, it can literally be exactly like you can literally walk down your local street, find your local boys and girls club, find your local YMCA, start a program if you want. Hey, we're just gonna be jumping rope and hanging out for an hour a day. I think people forget that how young these kids are also being brought into things like gang activity. People kind of have this mindset that it's like, oh, you're like 17 and that's when you start. No, like there are kids that are like 12 that grow up either seeing their older brothers involved in it, or they grow up just seeing it in their day-to-day neighborhood. And it's just the norm. To them, they don't know there's another option because that's just what they've seen. That's just another day in the neighborhood to them, you know? So taking even just an hour or 2 hours a day, or not even a day, a weekend, you know, and giving kids something to look forward to give them that hope of, here's a place that I can go once a week or twice a week where I have someone that believes in me to do better, to be better. And when you implement that type of mindset on a child, that they can be something, that they can do something with their life, they have that incentive to stay away from those types of things. You teach them, okay, you come here every weekend, we're gonna teach you more about reading and writing, or you wanna go into nursing, awesome. Here are some programs that you can go into that even without the necessarily income to go to nursing school, but here are some scholarships maybe that might help you, or some programs that might help you. Like, you give them that outlet, they will gravitate to it, I promise you, because we do have intelligent, bright, motivated kids. They just need someone to give them that push. And the only people really giving them that push right now is the negative impacting individuals in the community. And they're pushing them in the wrong direction. So I think people forget that there is that, it doesn't take a lot. It just takes simply having a conversation or simply giving somebody something to believe in and creating that truth for them so they can cling to it, that we need to be doing a lot more adamantly. And I wanted to kind of step back really quick, reverse just a hot second to what we first talked about too, about absentee fathers and how this kind of correlates to this is, as you know, Sean mentioned, about someone being there to motivate them and get them moving and getting them involved in their studies and things like that. You know, the court system royally screws over men when it comes to custody battles and things like that. So I don't want to ixnay that factor as well when it comes to the legal system, that dads are at a huge disadvantage when it comes to being able to see their kids sometimes. So I just don't want it to come off like we're saying men are bad, girl. Like, that's not what we're saying, but we're saying at the same time, there is a lot in place to make it difficult for you guys to be able to step up and be fathers as well. And I think the court systems, you know, also kind of being unfair in that sense, with situations like this and kids maybe that happening when they're younger and they can't understand it. So as they grow up, they're like, well, damn, what did I do? You know, and they grow with this resentment, which also leads to game crime, because then they have this, oh, no one was there for me, abandonment issues. It's just like a whole clusterfuck of sadness. So.
Hey, it wasn't me.
No. So I'm just going to dovetail off of what each one of you said. So I'm going to start first with the crab syndrome. You guys ever hear about that? You know, I know Topher did. He's from Mississippi, but you get a 5-gallon bucket and you start throwing crabs in there, and one crab will start climbing out of the bucket and he'll almost make it, and the other crabs from underneath are grabbing him and he pulls them right back down. So that's kind of the stuff that Kate was talking about. You know, trying to find those programs and those things that will eliminate that negativity that will pull those kids right back into that bad environment. I got a good buddy. His name's Davis Ucedo out of Waco, Texas. Just a good guy. His stage name is Politic. He's a rapper. He was a gangbanger growing up. He got busted, got sent to prison for 10 years. And while he was in prison, he got his head bust open, found Christ. And when he got out of prison, he said, enough's enough, man. I'm going to change my life around. I'm going to turn it around. And he promised himself, his wife, and his family, not only will he be the best father that they could have, but he's going to be the best member within his community. So through his rapping and through his other things, he started developing local programs right there in his own community, and putting in play that mentorship type of personality that you guys already talked about. So there's plenty of those kinds of heroes out there that are overlooked. People just don't give them that chance or the funding that they need to really make a difference within their community. That's the first thing. The second thing is what's the motivation, or what's the incentive look like for the parents that are already grown up gangbangers, not going home, that's going to allow their kids to do this? You know, what is it that we as a society can help develop to go into those neighborhoods and actually motivate? And I'm not talking about giving money or rewards to these individuals to allow it to happen, but what will motivate them to want to be that good parent, to turn their life around like David Suseilo did. And then the last thing is we have to understand it takes 15 to 20 years to change a generation's mindset. So we're not talking about the children now, but we're talking about the children of the children now, that we're really going to start seeing that difference. So the longer we wait, the longer it's going to take for those differences to be made.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's a problem with this generation of instant gratification, is that something doesn't work, they don't actually let it do what it's supposed to, because they're used to everything now. And there's no fix like that. Because like Greg said, in Chicago, like around where the Latin Kings were born, literally there are like these flats, right? And you have an upstairs, downstairs, and a basement, and each one is an apartment. And you have the daddy gangbanger, grandpappy gangbanger, and then the son gangbanger with his little 10-year-old running drugs in the school. And it is literally a family of gangbangers, and this is like a neighborhood worth. Wow. So like it's really bad and really hard, and nothing's going to change it overnight. Going into another big issue that affects the minority communities at the greatest is abortion. And it's something, you know, that is a really hot topic, you know, because people are pro-choice, pro-life. It taps into religion and a lot of other things. But in at least my opinion, you know, a lot of the things we hear coming out of these communities is that, you know, we're minorities and we're shit on because we're the lesser, and, you know, our voices aren't heard, and this, that, and the third. Well, if that's the case, then this is something that is keeping you a minority community. This is hurting you. I listened to this guy who I think is a total clown, Charlemagne the God, call these cracker ass colonizing motherfuckers are just trying to keep the black people down with the heartbeat bill in Alabama. I was like, you do realize that if they banned abortion in Alabama, in 1 year, blacks would outnumber whites 2-1. You realize this, right? So how is that keeping your community down, you ignorant person, with a massive following and a nationwide radio show?
Yeah,
that you're spreading this. In New York City alone in 2017, more black babies were aborted than were born. So why are you a minority community?
You know, just to talk about that, that's another thing I tell people all the time. While we out here saying like white privilege this, white privilege that, no, white people are the majority. I said, you know, it's projected that in 2050, white people will no longer be the majority. My thing is, I hope it hurry and gets here, so we can get rid of that excuse. Because what's going to happen is it no longer be the majority, and our issues going to still be the same, because it has nothing to do with white people. 90% of our issues have nothing to do with another race or anything at all. But yeah, as far as abortions, I mean, of course, I hate abortions. You know, and you know, it's murder. You know, point blank. Period. A lot of people's like, well, you know, it should be the woman's choice. I'm like, well, you know, I just cannot fathom to think that if you know, for instance, like, what other crime do we punish the kid like in death for their father for what their father and mother did. There's no other crime, you know. But abortion is the only one
Good point.
where we kill the baby, murder the baby, or sentence them to death for the crime of the father. So I hate this, and I wish we get rid of it, and I wish we would see the value in his life. I mean, how many doctors? I mean, how many people that could have risen up? How many Martin Luther Kings? How many other people that could have came through these kids that could have put America in a whole different place right now? You know, even when China, I think it was China or Japan, was doing like you couldn't have girls at one point in time. Like they was make sure you
That's
had
China.
Oh, it's China, yeah. So I'm just like, man, like that's horrible. You know what I'm saying? I could imagine killing off a baby specifically just because, you know, their gender. Like that's harmful, you know. But I mean, the women's choice and the pro-choice movement and the feminists are just like, nope, we don't want to hear it. Even though it takes two to tango, it takes one to get rid of, and it bothers me a lot. Like, you know, when we're talking about father privilege and we talk about absentee father, it's like, but what about the fathers, the good fathers that want to be there but are robbed the opportunity? And then when they rob the opportunity, I mean, I hate to say it, but sometimes it makes them a little bitter. You know, you may be mad and you carry that on into your next relationship with your next kids, and you kind of always live with this idea that, you know, how much control a woman actually have over your kids, and that can cause a ripple itself. So that's just my take on it, man.
And before we go to Kate, just a thing to think about if you're on that. If I were to go and kill a pregnant woman, I would get charged with a double homicide. Yeah. So why is it that if I were to shoot a woman who is carrying a baby, I get charged for murder twice, but a woman can just go murder the baby and gets nothing? It's okay. Just a question. Go ahead, Kate.
So something, I think it was, I want to say it was Louder with Crowder. He did a phenomenal back and forth with someone on this, you know, talking about my body, my choice. And if you guys have not seen Louder with Crowder, please go look it up. He is probably one of the most level-headed, calm human beings when it comes to controversial topics. I need to take notes from him in a lot of ways on that. But yeah, no, I completely agree. I really don't have a lot to add on this because I think it's pretty straightforward. I think when it comes to the ideology of abortion, it's not good and it's wrong and we shouldn't do it. Like that's really what it comes down to. And that's why things like Black Lives Matter currently existing just irritate the hell out of me, because it's like we're talking about defunding the police when we should be defunding Planned Parenthood. Like, you know what I mean? Like we're putting our focuses on, okay, you want to defund the police, which I understand does not mean necessarily get rid, but yeah, we discussed this in a previous video.
Yeah, it does.
You know, so whatever, but you're talking about wanting to lessen the effect of the police officers, but we're not actively talking about lessening the effect of something literally taking away Black lives. If our big thing is that we feel like we're outnumbered by white people and we're outnumbered by the majority, you guys can be equal to the majority if we just stop killing them, you know? So I know it sounds kind of like simple to people, but it really is that simple. Like it's not, and every time that someone asks me about abortion, like, yes, do I believe, I have my gray areas. Do I believe that when someone is raped? Yes, okay, that's one thing. Do I believe when a child is molested? Yes, that is one thing. And even then, it's still very like it's a very sensitive topic. But at the end of the day, if you are two grown adults that had consensual sex and you done fucked up, like, I don't know what to tell you. You made your life choices. You knew what was happening when the P went into the V, okay? So, like, I don't know what else to tell y'all. The baby happened. You knew it was a risk when it started. Like, and that's kind of just my frustration with it. If I don't know if you guys know, but I looked it up earlier, that at least in the state of Texas, you can get an abortion between 5 to 20 weeks. Okay, for those of you who can't do that math, 20 weeks is 5 months pregnant. I don't know if any of you have seen a woman who's 5 months pregnant, but that's a pretty big lady. Like that's a well-developed baby. So for me, I'm just kind of like, when I read that, I was like, oh my gosh, like this living thing that is roughly the size of, I think that's like a squash or like a cantaloupe at that point in time. You can just, you know what, I'm gonna take 5 months and mull it over. You know, I decided I don't want it. That by itself, regardless of race, that by itself is just wrong to me. That part I don't understand. So I think that there is a lot of people that have arguments about the gray areas of abortion. Some of them I can kind of entertain, but a lot of this concept of we are the minority because we have been put down by the system. No, we are the minority because we are forcing ourselves to be the minority by lessening our numbers by killing our own kids. Like that's it. So.
And if you look up Ben Shapiro's, one of his talking points he gave on that, it was one of his podcasts. He actually gives the percentage of those. He lumps all those gray area issues into one: molestation, incest, babies where they find out they're going to have a birth defect, rape, all those things in which the birth defect, and it is such a small percentage of the actual abortions done that it's not even an arguable point.
Right. And I know that some people argue like, oh, well, you don't know how many rapes are actually reported. I'm like, I feel like the ones that result in children though end up getting reported, you know, like they may not do something legally about it, but somebody knows about it. Like, you know what I mean? So I don't know.
Well, my perspective. Yeah. Well, me too. I was a twin and they didn't have me planned. But anyway, so I was the last one. They had to come up with another G name real quick. All right. But anyway, so for me and my perspective, I agree with everything that you guys are saying. The elephants in the room, and there's more than one. This is definitely a two-edged sword. First of all, I think it's a crock about the rape and incest thing, because if they truly really wanted to force that issue, then let's make it that. Let's make it just rape and incest, right? Wrong, right, or indifferent, just rape and incest. That would bring down the abortion rate by 90%. And I don't know that exactly for sure, 90%, but I guarantee you the percentages of rape and incest is minute compared to, oh, I just don't want to have a baby right now type of thing. Okay, so that's number one. The other thing is, and this goes to the harsh reality of actually outlawing abortion across the table, is that it will in fact begin the backyard and illegal abortions, which will start killing both not only the baby but the mother instead. Now, here's the harsh part about that, and we just have to say it because this is a discussion and it needs to be on the table. Even then, right, it's horrible that anything like that would happen, but even then, that reality would still result in less deaths than the amount of abortions that's being taken right now. And I just want to put that on the table because that has to be a part of that discussion as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point, Greg.
Also, really quickly going off of that too, like, there's financial aid for people that don't know that. Like, if you don't have a certain amount of income or you don't have insurance, there are physical financial plans that will either make abortions free for you, and I think that's if you have insurance, that abortions can be free for you. But if you don't have insurance, or if you don't have income, like, they will help you pay the way. Like, I believe the average abortion is like $600, something like that, out of pocket, which still is like dumbfounding to me. Like, oh, $600. You can take a life like that, you know, that's just so nonchalant. But the fact that they're literally like, hey, you don't have the money, we will help you pay the way, like that's terrifying to me. And people don't know that. They don't know that that's a matter of like, and I think Texas is a little bit different. I know it's different in every state how they operate, but I know in Texas it's like you have to go and get a ultrasound, and then based off that ultrasound they like walk you, whatever. But I think that's disgusting that there's literally basically the same way you can have financial aid in college, there's financial aid to kill a baby
for abortion. And you know, on the flip side of that coin, a lot of the excuses, I'm not ready, I'm not financially responsible to give this baby a life. Do you know that there's also the aid that they will cover you and the baby, and then you after the birth for X amount of time period?
Hi,
that's one of those social programs that will help you if you can't do it yourself until you can.
And I'm an adopted baby. Hi, how you doing? You know, my mom had
How you
me.
doing?
Hey, Dan. When she was really, really young, and if she decided, hey, I'm gonna like, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be doing any of the things that I'm doing at all. And did a white woman and a white man adopt me? Yes. Did I also have a Black brother and a Mexican sister? Yes, I did. I still had a lot of culture and a lot of diversity in my family. But at the same time, if I had just been a statistic and been a baby that was aborted, I physically wouldn't be here. So for me, like, that's also kind of just a daunting fact when I look at the percentages of abortions in the Black community. I'm like, that could have easily been my life. Like, that's terrifying to think that, like, okay, like that could have just been a $600 fix and Kate wouldn't have been here, you know? So being adopted, that hits home a little bit different. And also knowing that, like, you know what, I get it. Like some women are like, oh, I don't wanna wreck my body, or okay, then go get your tubes tied. Like, I hate to be that crude, but like there are ways that if you're not planning on having kids, if you don't feel that you're ready to have kids, there are a lot of preventative measures to take to do that, besides just, you know, I didn't really think I was gonna need birth control, and then it kind of just happened, and then he was a really cute guy, and here we are. Like, I hate to say it like that, but I don't think people really understand that a large majority of the abortion situations that occur are people just being unresponsible. Like that's you went out, you did something stupid with some person that you really don't know that well, or someone that you did know that well, but you weren't taking the preventative matters. And I understand that sometimes those fail, but again, that percentage of those things failing is very, very small. So it just kind of leaves you this question of, if you're on your third or fourth abortion, honey, at that point, like, now you're just using it as birth control, and birth control would be a lot cheaper for you, unless you have insurance and it's free, which is another major problem that insurance is even considering covering these things. Sorry, I'm circling. It just irritates me. It's an irritable topic.
Well, it's fine. It'll take us into the kind of wrap up and final question, because it's all into one. So the big thing with this, with the injustice within, is that I think the real injustice is the victimhood mentality that is pushed on us as minority communities. And that sits there, and what it doesn't want to allow us to do is to look inside our own home and say, is this really white people's fault, or is this my fault? Is it Greg's fault my son's a gangbanger, or is it my fault my son's a gangbanger? Is it my fault that I got 5 kids with 5 different women? No, it's Greg's fault. It's Greg's fault. Look at that mustache and that white skin. It's Greg's fault. So it really is. And that's why I call it the injustice within, because the biggest injustices we do are us. And it's been said by a lot of wealthy people that are minorities. Like, no one's going to fuck over a Black person more than a Black person. No one's going to fuck over a Latino more than a Latino. And it's the truth. And we don't want to do that. We don't want to acknowledge these other 3 fingers right here. We just want to point at one as some excuse that's external. So for the last question, and I'll leave it to you guys to answer, is if we had to pick, oh, there he is. If you had to look at these issues that are from within the communities themselves, what do you think is the largest issue or the biggest impactful issue that we should be addressing, and why? Topher.
Biggest, yeah, just fatherhood, man. Just go back to the fathers. Like I said, let's take away these measures that's preventing the father from being there. You know, it kind of reminds me of the Black Codes. I don't know if you remember the Black Codes back right after the Civil War. If you didn't have a job, then you were put in jail. If you couldn't vote unless your grandfather could vote, it was a lot of stuff that prevented, even though, you know, you had the right to do so, but it was just another way to prevent you from exercising your rights. So we need to get all these measures that's preventing men from being great fathers. Because I do believe that, you know, inherently we are great fathers. I remember when I first had my first kid, I was like, I have no idea what to do with this little bit of human. But it was like, as soon as I saw them, like, all the fatherhood data was just downloaded to my system. And I was like, oh, you know, I just take care of it, and I just change his diaper. So I do believe that we need to give men more credit. So I feel like right now we're not giving as much credit as we do. And on top of that, I think we just need to take those policies out of the way.
Okay.
Accountability. I hate to say it that simple, but accountability. I feel like when we start really analyzing what we're doing and stop focusing on, well, he's not doing this and she's not doing that, and if we can just with all the ish and genuinely reflect and also say, what have I done today to contribute to help this? And when that becomes a regular occurrence of saying, what have I done? How can I contribute? When you stop worrying about what everyone else is doing and saying, all right, I'm taking accountability for what's happening, even if it wasn't your fault, simply stating, I can contribute to this in some way to make it better. Everyone does that. Everyone chips in. I guarantee we see a drastic change in almost everything that we've talked about so far on this channel, not just this topic, but as a grand whole, the minorities themselves, not saying to say, you guys need to be accountable for what stupid people in your race are doing, but simply if you care, if you genuinely care, if you have love for my people are the American people, but if you have love for your race, for your culture, for your background, for your local communities, take accountability, reflect on what your part is, and if you're doing it. And I think that we'll see a very big shift. So.
Great.
For me, it's two parts. One is first start identifying the race hustlers and the elitist Marxist money bags like the Clintons and George Soros, and cut those strings off from the communities. You cut those strings off and push them away, you're going to see a huge eye-opener for the people of that community, number one. And then number two is allow and give the Judeo-Christian leaderships of the community the access to your community schools, to community meetings and school boards and so on and so forth, so that they can bring back a morality that has been stolen from the American foundation.
All right. Mine is going to be bad parenting. And I think that doesn't just apply to the minority community. That applies to this nation as a whole. The number one thing with why we look at these Tide Pod, just completely insane people who don't understand basic math, but think they understand enough to speak on politics and how to fix this nation, is bad parenting. We are allowing YouTube and TikTok and Angry Birds and all of that and the Twitter sphere and everything to raise our kids, and we are not doing it. The fact that we are allowing schools to push liberal ideologies and politics on 6-year-olds is why, because we are letting them raise our kids and not us. We have no accountability as parents, and we place no accountability on our children. You are not raising children. You are raising them to become functioning, productive, contributing adults. And as parents, we are failing in this nation, and especially in the minority communities. And there are other factors that come into play, like single mothers, but that's why we need the father. There's the fact that the mom is working 2 jobs and the son is out there gangbanging. That's why we got to fix that. All these issues are intertwined into that, and they either are an obstacle to be a good parent, or they are just parents who aren't doing their part. That is what I think is the number one contributing factor to this. And if we could work on being better parents and holding ourselves and our kids accountable, this nation as a whole would be for the better. So,
outstanding. It's a great.
That yep.
Great.
Well, that wraps it up. So if anybody else has anything to add, I'm not going to be the reason we go over the time limit this week.
Yeah. So once again, great topic. I felt like this was more solid this time. We just stuck to it and spit it out and got to the point. So we'll try this more often. I know we get a little long with it with you guys. It's because we're so passionate about this that, you know, sometimes we forget that we're trying to deliver a product, a result, a solution, you know, Solution University, that we just get to, you know, running off at the mouth. But yeah, hopefully y'all learned something and you took some stuff. We gave you some studies, we gave you some statistics, we gave you some insight, you know, from someone who's did not get aborted, who's adopted, from someone who has living not with their kids, to somebody who's living with their kids. You know, we gave you all these perspectives and how we can kind of build upon those. So hopefully we can take this with, hopefully I'll take this with y'all, and, you know, let's make America great again. Mm.
Amen.
Woo!
Peace.